A very good evening from wherever you're watching us on this third day of June 2024. Welcome to the Daily Report. My name is George Maringa. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Catherine Simaloy. It has been a minute, but I'm delighted to be back on the Daily Report. And as always, we bring you power and politics. And tonight, we resume the Daily Report with a sneak peek or an analysis, of the latest shift and the tectonic plates we've seen, especially in the global landscape. My guests tonight are none other than Paul Agina and Stephen Ndegwa, gentlemen who are very, very vast on matters international relations. Tonight we ask which way for the foreign policy of the Republic of Kenya this coming fortnight after the conclusion of the state visit by President William Ruto to the United States. He is now heading to South Korea and is already arrived in what has been described as Kenya's diplomat #1. We ask, are we facing east or west, or is it a mix altogether? And we analyze what best to be done, especially in the coming days, to achieve what Kenya, President Ruto has said, is the home of mankind. We look forward to your interaction, your questions, your comments regarding the program. Welcome to the broadcast. Our SMS line 22047 is open. On X, formerly Twitter, I'm at George Maringa _ use the hashtag Daily Report. But then a sneak peek into the top stories. Tonight, government agencies on the spot for failing to adhere to travel restrictions regulations. Gatundu South MP Gigi Kagombe to remain in custody as he faces murder charges.
Lakini ile response ya watu wanakuja kuona ni nini, wakakimbia. Baada ya kukimbia ndio imeripuka tena moto.
Investigations launched as gas tanker injures 2 in Embakasi. Absolutely, it is a pleasure to have you join us on the program. Those watching us on terrestrial platforms, we also welcome our viewers from across the continent and beyond, watching us through our YouTube channel, TV47 Kenya, as well as on our website. We invite your feedback as we begin the program tonight. I'm George Maringa. Catherine Simaloy is on sign language interpretation tonight. The control of budget is raising concerns that the government could be borrowing its own money while accessing overdrafts from the Central Bank of Kenya. According to a national government budget report that was produced, or rather implementation review report, of the year 2023-2024, the borrowing is affecting budget implementation. Other issues adversely affecting budget implementation include growth in travel expenditure, public debt exceeding legal limit, and increase in pending bills. Moiga William opens our broadcast tonight with the details of that report.
Of how much
The Control of Budget Review report for the period covering 1st of July 2023 to the 31st of March 2024 shows that the central bank overdraft charges increased by 105% in the current review period compared to similar period in the financial year 2022-2023. This, according to the Control of Budget, is raising concerns about whether the government is borrowing its own money while at the same time accessing overdrafts from the central bank, an issue which has a negative impact on budget implementation. The Control of Budget recommends the adoption of the Treasury single account, arguing the move will significantly improve transparency and accountability in the use of public funds, even as an increase in gross expenditure for the national government increased significantly for the period under review. In the report, the Control of Budget further says state agencies are not complying with the directive to reduce travel expenditure. 12.33 billion shillings was used for domestic travel, while 5.85 billion shillings was spent on foreign travel, an increase of 29.2% growth over the same period in the last financial year. Some government ministries, departments and agencies did not submit clearance application or limiting the delegations, such as the directive limiting the delegations headed by cabinet secretaries to 4 persons and limiting the cumulative days away to a maximum of 7 days per travel, 15 days per quarter and 45 days per year. According to the report, the outstanding national government pending bills as of 31st March 2024 amounted to 405.28 billion shillings for state corporations, while ministry, departments and agencies are yet to clear pending bills worth 81.5 billion shillings. The Controller of Budget recommends timely regularization of the overdrawn budget lines through the supplementary budget and ratification of funding in line with the Constitution, further asking accounting officers to adhere to the government guidelines on foreign travel to reduce budget on non-core expenditure and save funds for key services. Mwege William, TV47.
Thank you, Mwege, for that. Vehicle owners may soon be forced to pay more for their vehicle insurance if the Finance Bill 2024 is passed as is, despite objections from a section of Kenyans and institutions. Finance and National Planning Committee Chairman Kuria Kimani says it may be difficult to exempt the proposed motor vehicle circulation tax clause, which is estimated to help Treasury to collect more than 58 billion shillings in the next financial year. Mike Kagwongo with the details.
It is now evident that by the end of June 2025, Kenyans who own cars may be required to pay a motor vehicle circulation tax aimed to boost revenue by over 58 billion shillings. According to Finance and National Planning Committee Chairman Kuria Kimani, no one was ready to deduct their share of the 3.9 trillion shillings 2024-2025 budget to accommodate exemption of the motor vehicle circulation tax. Kuria stressing that 2024-2025 budget expected to be read next week will be reduced by 58 billion shillings should the 2.5% clause be scrapped off.
One option then, if we have to really get rid of it, would be to reduce the budget by 58 billion. Now the problem is nobody wants the budget. Okay, not this side, but the political side, including the one against it, don't want to reduce the budget. No, I'm telling the budget committee, and especially like the easiest thing is to just cut the budget. Let's cut the budget. But when we're moving the finance bill, everyone wants to oppose it, okay?
The National Treasury capped the tax at 5,000 shillings minimum and 100,000 shillings maximum, paid when purchasing car insurance cover. In the proposals, Kenyans owning a car will have to pay 2.5% of the vehicle value, and those supplying goods to public entities will part with between 3 to 5%. The levy is aimed at enhancing Kenyans' investment in the public transport sector.
And after that, we'll have to vote for the budget vote by vote. You know, actually, the budget is voted vote by vote. And therefore, one of the possibilities is to find a vote that we can reduce by, so if that is 58 billion, or whichever other tax that Kenyans have on, and we just reduce that for 2. Yes, there is that probability. So
the Association of Kenya Insurers said since motor vehicle insurance in Kenya is compulsory, they anticipate a major shift towards third-party motor insurance if the tax comes into force.
We also do propose that the scope of motor vehicles exempt from this tax be expanded so that we capture commercial vehicles and vehicles that are involved in agriculture.
The shift towards third-party coverage will lower insurers' income, which translates to lower corporate tax contributions should the clause remain as it is. Mike Kagwongo, TV47, Nairobi.
To access some of those personal data.
Thank you, Mike, for that. And the debate continues. Gatundu South Member of Parliament, Gigi Kagombe, will remain in police custody until Friday, when he will take his plea in relation to the shooting of a border rider. Kagombe was arraigned at Embakasi Court, where Judge Justice Francis Olele directed that he be taken to Thika Level 5 Hospital for mental assessment. Nicholas Mbai reports.
At 1 p.m. Monday, Gatundu South Member Parliament Gabriel Gakombe was presented to the Machakos High Court before Judge Francis Olele to face murder charges. The prosecution and the defendant presented their submission that made Justice Olele to direct the MP to undergo mental assessment at the Thika Level 5 Hospital on Thursday, 6 June.
Which in this instance has not been done. I do therefore order that the accused person is taken to Kiambu Level 5 Hospital on Wednesday, 5th of June to have assessment done.
In pursuing this matter, we have
Justice Olele directed the legislator to be detained at Muthaiga Police Station and be produced before the court on Friday, 7th June 2023 to take plea.
The second issue is whether or not he should be released on the anticipatory bond terms issued in Kiambu HRCC miscellaneous application number 80424. This was opposed by the State Council on the basis that the information had been filed and that anticipatory bail was no longer applicable. On this score, I do agree with the State Council that anticipatory bail granted would only apply before formal charges are filed. Once the formal charges are filed, the same anticipatory bail has been undertaken by them, and the accused person will allowed to apply for new bail bond terms once formally charged before this court. The
Gatundu South legislator Gabriel Gakombe 2 weeks ago in Thika town is said to have shot and killed David Ndwati, a border rider. Nicholas Mbai reporting for TV47, Machakos County.
Thank you, Nicholas, for that. 7 bodies have been exhumed from 3 graves in the Shakahola forest, Kilifi County today, as Phase 5 of the exhumation exercise resumes, pushing the death toll to 436. Government pathologist Johansen Oduor said some 50 graves have been earmarked for dig-up. In the 5th phase of exhumation, the identified graves are located using the Global Positioning System GPS. The exhumation exercise had been suspended in December 2023 to allow pathologists conduct DNA on the already exhumed bodies.
We identified 3 graves, and in these 3 graves we were able to exhume about 7 bodies. One of the graves actually had 4 bodies, while the other 2 had one each, which make them a total of 7 bodies which we've exhumed today. Is an exercise which will go on, and as per what I know, we have about 50 graves which were identified, which we are going to work on until we finish up. GPS is working because GPS is one of the very critical tool which you use in locating the place and mapping, so that now we can be able to say that this person was actually found this particular grave based on the GPS. There was an issue with the government chemists who had not had some reagents, but they've gotten reagents, and we expect that within the next 1 month they'll be able to have analyze the bodies which are there with them, so that as we exhume, we'll be also able to release the bodies which are there, so that now we can create also space.
Now, police have launched investigations into the cause of a gas tanker explosion that left 2 people injured in Nairobi's Embakasi area. Area Police Chief Wesley Kimeto is urging people to avoid the area. And Odida with that report.
Avenue Park Estate, Nairobi. Residents milling around the scene of the gas tanker explosion that left 2 people injured, one of them critically. The explosion coming months after a similar one left many dead.
2 victims have been taken to hospitals. I'm not able to ascertain which hospital the 2 have been taken to. So the investigations have begun, and more information will follow.
The cause of the explosion is still unknown.
Sababu ya explosion exactly ni nini, but there was that leakage before the explosion.
So ile time ya kuleak, ujamaa wa Nissan akapita, so ile mazabi ya alikuwa maji alipitia huko mwisho, ikabidi gari isukumwe.
Shuka kidogo na akarudi tena. Kurudi pale ni kama amepiga starter. Ile starter ndio sasa moto imewaka.
Though emergency service providers rushed to the scene to control the fire, the response was delayed.
Na cha kushangaza ni kwamba hii moto imewaka almost 2 hours. Kwa sababu naona fire zimefika hapo almost 30 minutes ago. Kumaanisha kwamba tuko na challenge kubwa upande wa disaster response.
Response ya fire wamekuja late, wamekawia sana. Si tukingojea hiyo moto kabla ikuje kufika hapa, tumekaa karibu almost 1 hour. Tukiona moshi, tukiona moto imewaka pale.
Tukakaa hapa karibu kama 2 hours hivi, by the way. Hakuna response imekuja. The moment inanipota boom. Hakuna.
Early this year, a gas tanker exploded at an illegal gas refilling facility, leaving 10 people dead and several others injured. Ann Odida, TV47.
Thank you, Odida, for that. Tension is high in Kapcherop area, Marakwet West constituency, Elgeyo Marakwet County, after a police officer raided a KFS forest protection station and killed 2 officers in what is believed to be a romantic dispute. The officer later killed himself.
Confirming the incidents, Kenya Forest Service Chief Conservator Alex Lemarkoko said the police officer from the Border Protection Unit in Todonyang Camp, North Turkana, attacked 3 officers, killing 2 on the spot and injured another.
The assailant actually may have been targeting to injure and kill more. One of our ranger lady by the name Jennifer Kilonzi was injured. She got a gunshot at the upper hand, but she survived and she's now at the hospital. As a matter of fact, as we speak now, she's actually undergoing surgery to correct.
Area residents say they had gunshots and reaching the scene, found 2 of the forest rangers dead.
Tulifika kwa nyumba pale chini, tukapata kuna askari mmoja alikuwa amepikwa akiwa mlango pale, ameangukia chini. Na kuna askari madam tena amepikwa risasi na alikuwa amekaa kwa kitanda. Alikuwa na kichiko, walikuwa nakula sapa. So hiyo kichiko ilikuwa kwa mkongo, alafu ule mwingine alikuwa amelala chini. Saa hiyo watu wakasema waje tutafute huyu jamaa yenda ikawa amejiua ama ametoroka. So wakati walipanda kwa mkubwa wa forest, hiyo nyumba ilikuwa imefungwa na jamaa mwenyewe akapatikana nje, alikuwa amejiua kwa risasi.
Hii kichana ilianza mambo yake mbali ambaye ni malezi mapaya. Hakuweza kusikiza wazazi na hata kuweza kusikiza maafisa vile alitreniwa kama maafisa wa serikali. Hakuna mtu anaweza kufanya jambo kama hii.
After committing the crime, the officer turned the gun on himself.
DCI is handling the matter. The situation is under investigation. As my senior has confirmed, the assailant is an officer stationed at Todonyang Border Patrol Unit. I have communicated with the matter station, they have confirmed the same, and now we are proceeding with the police investigation.
The injured officer is receiving treatment at a local hospital. Isaac Famba, TV47.
Thank you, Isaac, for that. President William Ruto is in South Korea for the Korea-Africa Summit. The president is expected to hold bilateral talks with President Yoon Suk-yeol to review the 132 billion Kenya shillings framework arrangement partnership agreed on during the president's visit in 2022. Agreements worth 140 billion Kenya shillings will be concluded to create opportunities in Kenya's creative economy sector. Kenya and South Korea will also finalize the signing of labor migration program under the South Korea Employment Permit System. The president will also attend the Korea-Africa Summit, which aims to build strong relations between South Korea and Africa.
Habari nzuri ya excellency. Korea. Habari yako? Salama. Hello, how are you? Very good. Habari? How are you? Very good. Habari yako? Hello, how are you? Habari? Habari? Hello, how are you? Habari yako? Hello, how are you? Very good. Hello, how are you guys? Very good. Habari. Hello, how are you?
And of course, the Korea visit, South Korea visit, forms part of our discussion tonight with my guests, Paul Agina and Stephen Degwa. We analyze Kenya's foreign policy. Do stand by for that conversation coming your way in a short while. As the country inches closer to the adoption of genetically modified seeds for consumption, lobby groups against the crops have been urged to embrace dialogue instead of dismissing the benefits of biotechnology. International Service for Acquisition of Biotech Applications Director Dr. Margaret Karembu now says the country should now look towards collaborations to make the most out of the adoption of GM seeds instead of derailing the process.
Around 65% of Africa's labor workforce is employed directly in agriculture. In Kenya, around 32.6% of the population are in this lucrative market, despite the continuing abandonment of the practice, with the average age of the farmer remaining at 61 years.
Whenever you feel it feels like you're defending yourself, then your trust level goes down, and so you're likely to have people creating a lot of misinformation around the subject area.
This, coupled with climate change and the spread of invasive pests, has compromised food production, a feat that scientists insist will only be cured with the adoption of new biotechnology and improved farming practices.
Have approved the cultivation of BT cotton, which is cotton that is genetically modified to resist the cotton bollworm. No other that is in the commercial arena in Kenya. Previously, when before the ban, we had approved material for consumption that was brought in by the World Food Program for purposes of emergency response to food situations during the drought. Otherwise, no other. What we have in the market is BT cotton. We are processing final stages for BT maize and the virus-resistant cassava.
Scientists also insist that the war is over. As the country inches closer to adopting the genetically modified seeds for consumption, they now ask for collaboration and cooperation.
Then people always ask themselves, who is benefiting? Are there benefits? And then people want to feel that they have control. If there's no control over what is happening, then they start losing trust. And then if they feel that there is fairness in the way the technology is developed, in the way it is assessed, it becomes easier for us to get through to our stakeholders.
This as the National Biosafety Authority affirms that any seeds they approve, genetically modified or otherwise, is safe for use and consumption. Embakasi for TV47.
The national government, through the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, is set to roll out 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic in the next 2 years in a bid to leverage the already existing Kenya Power infrastructure. Speaking during the Siaya County Dissemination Forum in the medium-term plan, Cabinet Secretary for Information Communications and Digital Economy, Eliud Owalo, called for a close collaboration between the county and national government to enable development in the region. Owalo further urged stakeholders to read and understand the contents of the plan and be its advocates.
The process has to be participatory and all-inclusive. And that is why the Ministry of Planning, in its wisdom, found it imperative to involve all the relevant stakeholders from Siaya County, as in all the other counties, during the planning process, so that the views of the integral stakeholders could go into that process. But again, as you develop any policy document, you need to be aware of the fact that you don't operate in a vacuum. And that is why the economist here for Ministry of Planning has aptly put it, that the MTP4 had to be aligned to other relevant policy documents, because Kenya as a country also does not operate in a vacuum.
Sports News brought to you
Let's get sporty. Kenya National Women's Football Under-17 team, Junior Starlets, have intensified their preparations ahead of the fourth and final round of the 2024 FIFA Under-17 World Cup two-legged qualifier against Burundi at Dandora Stadium. The first leg of the fixture is scheduled to take place this coming Sunday in Ethiopia, followed by the second leg at home the next Sunday. They are set to travel to Ethiopia on June 7th, 2024 and will return to Kenya on June 10th, 2024 to continue their preparations for the second leg.
Najua World Cup obviously tukienda huko nje ni makoches wengi sana watakuja kutuangalia. Na you never know, maybe unaweza baki ama pia in future mtu akufuatilia sema huyu mtoto niliona anacheza vizuri na mimi namhitaji kwa klabu yangu. So naona sasa mimi naona ita change life yangu na pia ita change life ya watu wengi sana. Kwangu mimi naona ita change life ya familia yangu, personal pia mimi ita change life yangu.
Hii ni chance watu wengi wametaka hawajapata, but mimi nimeipata na lazima niitumie, ni represent country yangu vizuri. Teammates wangu sasa kila mtu ako focused na hii game. Azinu ukiwapata wamekaa wanaongelelea tu hii game ya Burundi na kitu na washua tunaenda kubeba na tunaenda World Cup.
Now to more sports news, where the USIU Flames and Team Twende secured a slot to represent Kenya at the Red Bull Half-Court World Finals that will be held in New York, USA in October 2024. The two were crowned as the winners of the national finals of the Red Bull Half-Court tournament played at the USIU grounds. In the men's final matches, Team Twende had to dig deep in their experienced tank to outclass Team Hokies 23-10. In a nail-biting final, USIU Flames left nothing to chance after blazing and scorching the hopes of their opponents, Team Hokies, in a tightly contest 14-19 win.
Finals, they were marvelous. Yes, USIU have won, Twende have won, but I've seen new talent which is development. So what I can say is 3-on-3 is on the right track and the future is bright.
The level is very high. As you have seen the teams that we've played, they are very competitive girls who are from different areas of the country. So the competition is quite intense. 3-on-3, 5-on-5, but more of 3-on-3 because we're preparing for this. We will help our coaches and other of our teammates.
All right. Was incredible. It went down to the last.
Signed in as new Chelsea manager on a 5-year contract in a deal which also
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni Ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that, so when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO and the rest of.
What point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first.
give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid, walls rising, and rooms taking shape. Step 3. Electricity matters. We delve into wiring, switches, and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays, 6:30.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
What point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata mbao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid.
We thank you for staying with the Daily Report. 36 minutes past 9 o'clock East African time. Time now for that important conversation, as I promised you on the Daily Report, where we look at Kenya's foreign policy and we ask which way Kenya. My guests tonight are 2 gentlemen, not new to your faces. And of course, as I did tell you, they are very well versed and well informed on matters of foreign policy and international relations. To my immediate left is Stephen Ndegwa, Executive Director, South-to-South Dialogues. Thank you so much for joining us, Stephen.
Thank you so much for having me.
Brilliant. And Paul Agina, an international relations expert and also pursuing your PhD at the University of Nairobi.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And I want to begin by picking your minds. You've seen what is happening. There is the Haiti conversation of sending our police officers to Haiti, but we've seen what is happening to them locally. What do you make of what do you make out of that?
Okay, I think what is happening locally to the police is child's play if you compare to what could potentially happen to them in Haiti. Okay. I don't know, maybe there's something that the government knows and the US knows that we don't about security in Haiti. But if you're going by what we read in the media reports, since we are not there and we don't have agents there, it's going to be quite dicey to have security forces there. And already there's bad blood that has been created within the citizenry about the Kenyan participation in the security of Haiti. So I have no judgments to make, but my hunch is that it could be a killing field for our police. But I will leave it at that.
No, you leave it at that.
Yes.
And we've seen the situation that happened, yesterday with that police officer as well, and also the treatment of the viral picture, the trending image.
I think the police are surprised that we love them. We actually love our policemen. It's just that, of course, they have their own feelings. But it started with people asking, is this the way we feed our police officers when they take duty outside, it's worse than schools. I mean, nowadays bread and toast, is really so basic. I think we need to respect the police more. We need to give them more, privileges And this is what happens in the developed jurisdictions.
Yes.
The police, the doctors, the teachers, those are a privileged lot because they deal with the masses. And without proper order in those sectors, then definitely we are going to have issues in society. And about the fight yesterday, I think the young man, there's so much going on, comments about that incident. But for me, is that the young man was misguided. He should not have, I don't know where he got the guts anyway. I saw him being asked by the DCI, do you have a training camp? Because even then they were like, a 19-year-old, where do you get the guts to face a policeman? So they're saying it's about Gen Zs and all that. But I think, I don't know, even me, I'm lost because not that my kids are perfect or anything, but I think that one was quite overboard.
Overboard.
Yes.
And uncalled for. I could hear you whispering and laughing again.
Yeah, on Haiti and what is happening also locally. I think, let me start with what is happening locally because charity begins at home before we go global.
Yes.
The young man, Ian Njoroge, from where I stand, went overboard. Remember, this is a country that is governed by rule of law. And the police are the enforcement officer whom have been given the mandate to ensure that we are safe. There is law and order within our territory. Therefore, seeing a young man who should actually be really working very hard to achieve his dream, kicking a policeman, I think that was really dejecting, devastating, and even embarrassing to our men in blue. So I think that is something that right now I can't really comment much about the same because let the rule of law take its course because it's a matter within the court of law and I expect justice to be served. And to the police who was hurt, I hear he's in one of the hospitals within the city. We wish him a quick recovery.
Brilliant. And in the meantime, President William Ruto has been on traveling mode. It is, summer is approaching, and of course, travels are quite high. If you look at his chest.
The flying president.
Let's look at the US. In a nutshell, Atlanta and now Washington, D.C., the according of the state visit. In a nutshell, what did you make of that state visit?
Of course, American things are always hyped. It's the culture. So they had hyped the whole thing. And people were waiting with bated breath, what will be the outcome. We saw the president, of course, it was mired in controversy. That doesn't help issues because we know America, we've been there before with America in the West, once beaten, twice shy. We know what happened when the Cold War ended and they told Moi, excuse me, now you have, your sell-by date is over or is due, and they shifted now and started asking for multi-party politics in order to widen, their playing fields, yeah? So I think it's all about the US interests. It's not about us because it doesn't need a state visit for the US to do what it needed to do for us, since we went, cold on them not to about 4 decades ago. You remember when Moi threw them out, and so he said, look east, started toying with China, and then Kibaki came and said, let's not pussyfoot on these things because we need development. And China came through with the infrastructure and other, benefits of cooperation that were tangible. When Uhuru came on, he took over again and continued the China, cooperation. So it's not to say that China is perfect or anything, but at least if you look at the infrastructure that the Chinese have built within those 4 decades, it's something that we always wanted the World Bank to do for us, but with the conditionalities, I don't know, you hear there is this World Bank project, the Mombasa Highway that we are now saying is a World Bank project that I think is as old as Moi, the dueling of the Mombasa Highway. So I'm not very excited about what would happen. And to America, it was just one of those games, and We know really that they are pressed because there's a new Cold War that pits them, or the West, with China, Russia, South Korea, and those other states that do not sing to the West tune. And then now, America, there's Ukraine and all that. And, you know, so America has been getting regions, okay? It has some security pact with Japan, Australia, UK, you know. Then it goes to a certain region. So it has all these regions so that it can plant its military there in case of a global, you know, whatever, skirmish. And so it can have a foot in every corner of the world if push comes to shove, okay? So I think we need to be more retrospective about the relations with the US. And if Trump comes, then this whole deal, I'm sorry, will go down the drain.
So you want to say there was nothing that came out of the
no, there was.
$1 multi-billion shilling, you know, investment cooperation deals?
No, for me, I'm cynical in the sense that I wait to see on the ground what is happening on the ground. I think we have had, as I said, we've been there before. Promises, you know, the US is a very good politician. Okay, they're just like Kenyan politicians who promise you heaven, but till when they get into the office and they sit down. So for the US, I think the main thing is the NATO thing and have their military foothold here.
And we will come to that. Let me pick your mind, you know, on the overall, in a nutshell, you know, overview, your perspective regarding the state visit.
Thank you, Maringa, once more. From where I sit, number one, there's no weak player in the international system. Therefore, in this visit, I'll say there were several gains. But remember also, in the art of war and international politics, we say that there's no free lunch. If you can borrow from Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. Therefore, it's a give and take kind of scenario. And mark you, if you look at the international system, what runs the show is state interest. Therefore, the question should be, was Kenya able to achieve some of her interests? And was US also able to achieve the same? So looking at it, I think there are several gains. For example, if you look at the 477 billion road initiative that is from Mombasa to Nairobi, 4 to 6 lane. Well, in the meantime, we don't know when the project shall commence, but looking at it from the long-term perspective, it will be beneficial because that's infrastructural development within the country. Apart from that, of course, there are questions here because they are talking of running it for another 30 years, something that also may bring some squabbles within the country, but we're yet to wait and see that. Another gain, if you're keen enough, you realize that 60 Kenyans will be given scholarships there for about 6 weeks to go and study in the US. So I think by President William Ruto negotiating on this, it's a very huge plus to the Ministry of Education, whereby we can have some cultural exchange, educational exchange, some of the Kenyans within the country going to the US, acquiring skills and knowledge, and then coming back home to transform some different dockets as well. And then if you look at also this visit, another major gain from where I stand is there was an attempt by President William Ruto trying to more or less provoke the US government to renew the AGOA Pact. If you look at AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act, it's a matter of doing with the barriers so that we can have a lot of our products getting into the US market and more so in the textile industry. So I think there are major gains from where I stand, and even in NATO, depending on where you stand, it's a matter of perspectivism. So on NATO also, I think we'll delve deeper into that later. But to me also, it's a plus because even if you look at the world today as we see it, some of the most peaceful countries in the world are NATO members. Look at Sweden, look at Finland, look at Canada, look at Australia. These are NATO members. But now, as we are more or less going to be an ally, not a member within NATO, as an ally, we are going to operate under the principle of collective defense. By collective defense, I simply imply that if you attack Maringa, for instance, you've attacked me and you've attacked him all together. So we come with a combined force to deal with the threat. So I think there's a give and take here. From the US perspective, I feel like the question is, as I said before or earlier, that there's no free lunch. What is their interest in Africa? If you look at the international system as it is today, it is multiplex. If you look at the works of Amitav Acharya, multiplex to mean that power in the international system is more fluid as we speak. And there's no single unipolar country that can come and claim that it's totally in charge of the international system. It means that power is fluid, whereby US has a little bit of it in terms of military and economic perspective. You'll find a bit of it in China, because population also gives you power, the market. Look at technology in China, and then look at the BRICS on the other end, that's China, Brazil, and Russia. Then don't fail to look at the role of the non-state actors. We've got NGOs, strong regional blocs, who are also major players today in the international system, and even belligerent actors, like the Hamas, terrorist groups that are also interfering with peace and security within the international system. So I think the US has realized that its unipolar power in the world system has been challenged. And now the question is, how do we deal with the current scenario? Because if you look at where we are today, in the 21st century, before this, there was World War I and World War II. After World War II, the world became a bipolar during the period of Cold War, where the Soviet Union and the US were at the top of power politics in the international system. But after 1989, with the disintegration of the USSR, US assumed the global hegemon, the most superpower player in the world system. But then if you're to look at around 2010 up to date, there have been some emerging powers, the likes of China, the likes of India. And therefore, US has realized that it's time to go and recollect our traditional allies, but at the same time also try to more or less prevent them from joining the BRICS. And that's why Kenya becomes an inroad for the US geopolitically to find a way in which to resuscitate some of the relations with traditional allies within the continent. Thank you.
Brilliant. And, on this NATO perspective, now that we've discussed, Agina has brought it. What do you make of it? Because it was one of the agreements and one of the things that were, celebrated and agreed upon. And, they were seen as putting Kenya on the map, especially looking at even the acquisition of weapons to deal with the Haiti.
It's terrorism. And you don't need to become powers to be a NATO non-ally member or to get NATO support military to fight terrorism. Okay, these are just a few guys who come and wreak havoc all over. Okay, so it is not in our interests. That is what I don't know why it takes so long to understand these things. Look at Ukraine. What is happening to Ukraine right now? They were put there, we are just becoming a proxy of the US in the region, okay? And so they put, like Ukraine, they pushed Ukraine to the eastern border of Russia. They knew ultimately Putin would not allow it, and so the war started. But you see now, NATO is the West. Don't call it anything another. It's just the West, And if Sweden and so forth are not fighting, it's not because who are they fighting with, okay? Because they are just one group of people. So I don't think our interests are NATO. I'm sorry to put it, but that is a Western kind of security pact. Yeah. So here, what we may need, the British are here, and so forth. So as I say, this is the US playing geopolitics of in case of an emerging war. Okay. Now, if you look at what is happening in Ukraine, if I go back, Russia has been, plummeting Ukraine day after day after day after day. Okay. NATO cannot enter soldiers. They just send arms and and sometimes outdated arms and whatever. They dump old arms and ammunition and stuff like that. And you see, even so far, President Zelensky of Ukraine is frustrated. He's saying, now you guys, you have to help me. Otherwise, without US support, then we are finished. So you are like, who are you fighting? Would it not have been better for you to go and talk to Putin? Because you guys are one, you see? Didn't you have just gone to Putin and told him, excuse me, what is it here? But of course now, once you are surrounded by NATO, he can't turn back because hypothetically they're the ones who put him in power. So I think we need to be careful what we are gaining from these things, okay? Because those guys will come here, put up an army base and so forth, and we will have no use for it. Okay.
Yeah, one of the cooperation agreements was that the extension of the Manda base in the coast.
Yes.
In return, earlier on, we did see, especially because the visit to the Pentagon was the last assignment for the president.
Yes.
You know, they celebrated, rather, they looked at the issue of the 3 military officers from the Kenya Defense Forces who are receiving training in the US in the 3 bases. When you look at such cooperation agreements, do you think, in terms of like beneficial, how mutual is it? In the wake of the NATO, non-NATO ally, agreement, and that signing that occurred.
No, good question. Yeah, how mutual is it? You see, that's what we should be asking ourselves, because all they said was bringing military guys here to DOD and everything, and then they're bringing them to very strategic, areas of our military. So they pick intelligence from those people. You see. So we are ceding our independence, whether we like it or not.
Is that so?
Yes, we are ceding our independence, and sooner or later, now we just be a puppet because they have known your structures, so they just know where to pull, and then we have to dance to their tune.
Puppet is such a strong word.
No, it is. It is. As a country, I think we are just becoming, a client state. So just like economically now, if you look at the taxes that we are having,
yes,
it is not that maybe IMF and World Bank say, go and tax these guys this way, but they give you a target. And so you disenfranchise your people because you want to please foreigners. I think that's where we go wrong. And I think we need to take the attitude of people like Niger and those young boys who are taking over power there.
You want Kenya to have a coup?
No, not a coup. I mean, leaders who are resolute about where they want their people to be. So let's not use poverty and things like that to sell our soul, okay? Let's just say we are not going to engage. We know we are rich. We have the resources. So if you don't want to engage with us, you can go. But our resources are not going to go for a song, okay? So yeah, because all of a sudden there's this thing of Africa, everyone wants a piece of Africa. President Ruto is now in South Korea, he's in Italy, those guys are beckoning. So there's a scramble for Africa, but we are the ones who are not seeing it, So there's a joke that is going like, everyone is looking to Africa, for its resources, but Africa is looking up to heavens, to go to heaven. So you're like, who is fooling who, Yes.
Yeah. Again, what are your comments? You have poked quite some holes.
Yeah, sure, but no problem. Yes, I've heard where my brother is coming from, and is bringing what we call neo-colonial debate. Neo-colonial debate in that, we attained independence, yes, but despite the fact that we attained independence, we are still more or less held by the big brothers. That is black skin, white mask, if you can quote from Frantz Fanon. So from where I stand, looking at the military pact, the NATO agreement, number one, if you look at it, the truth of the matter is, in the international system, is whoever controls the piper calls the tune. And for example, let me give a scenario of you from where you come from, your household. You may be 7 or 6 siblings, but you'll find that sibling who is economically stable, financially independent, calls a lot of shots within that neighborhood as compared to probably, quote unquote, that who is less fortunate. And that is actually what also happens in the international system. You find that your power within the international system also depends with your economic might, your military might, your ability to use your soft power, which right now the US is also trying to use that soft power, and also borrowing from the Chinese Belt Road Initiative by coming up for the first time we are seeing a road initiative getting into Kenya. So this pact, this cooperation will be vital in this manner in the Kenyan context.
Yes.
our military men are likely to acquire skills and knowledge from the Western world, and specifically the US. Then, apart from this, also remember during that trip as well, the president was given 16 helicopters, if I'm not wrong. These were military helicopters to also assist in the fight and maintenance of Kenya's sovereignty and territorial integrity, which is one of our key pillars within, our key principle within our foreign policy. So I partly agree with what he's saying, in that at this time we should be more independent. We should be able to decide how we want to run our affairs, both domestically and internationally.
Absolutely.
But then,
yeah.
Okay.
So I want us to, take a pause on that, because we need to take a short break, and then when we come back, we delve now into the benefits. We did see the 150 mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles scheduled for delivery in 2024 September, 8 utility helicopters to be delivered in September 2024, 8 light utility helicopters to be delivered by early 2025. We will also interrogate that after this short commercial break. You're watching the Power and Politics segment right here on the Daily Report. You're back in a few minutes. Do stay with us.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback, ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
Absolutely. Quite discussion going on even as you are during the break with my guests, Paul Agina and Stephen Ndego, gentlemen who are well versed in matters international relations. Before the break, Agina, you were talking about NATO.
Yes. I was talking about NATO.
Yes.
And the reason is, international politics depends on state interest.
Yes.
That is Kenya's interest at this particular juncture. And this system is self-help. Everybody is fighting for survival. So your interests come first before you think of your neighbor or whoever within the system. So there's no single way you're going to tell me that you're secure if you don't have a padlock in your house and the neighbor is more secure. You'll want first of all to ensure that you are secure, you're safe, and all that. So it starts from within. So state interest first before we go the regional or African context.
Okay.
But the challenge is, if you look at NATO has got some negative connotation, partly because when you look at majority of African scholars, we try to look at it from the operation in Libya, which many in the international system look at it as a failed mission. Remember, Libya was attacked during the Obama time, and it was by NATO ally. And the country was flourishing economically, socio-culturally, but after intervention by NATO, the country today is wallowing in miasma of poverty. So NATO, to some extent, also look at the operation in Iraq, whereby in the Middle East also, there are people who felt like it was too much force used in Iraq. Otherwise, there were other alternative mechanisms to deal with the situation. So by Kenya becoming a close ally, Kenya is trying to apply the principle of that self-defense. But remember that Kenya is not the only country in Africa that is a close ally to NATO. Already we've got countries like Morocco, we've got Tunisia, we've got Egypt, and Kenya is becoming the fourth country. If you look at this close ally nature of Kenya to NATO, it simply tells you of the United States' geopolitical interest in the continent. Look at the countries that have been given this close neighborliness and being recognized as a very close ally to NATO. Look at that block or that seaway. From Mediterranean, you pass via the Suez Canal, and then Red Sea, then you find yourself to Indian Ocean. It is a great trade route for international trade. So it tells you that by recognizing Kenya as a close NATO ally, the interest is on pacifying what is happening in the Red Sea, the Houthi rebels. That's where I stand.
That's where you stand.
Yes.
And so, looking forward, I was looking at the foreign policy. By the way, in terms of debunking, because our topic, of course, today is on Kenya's foreign policy, do successive governments need to come with their foreign policies once they, come into power?
I think in terms of foreign policy, and why we never seem to get it right as a nation in terms of international relations, is because everyone comes with their own agenda. And mostly it's not informed agenda. A foreign policy is, there's a basic, what you can call irreducible minimums in a foreign policy. And if you take into considerations who are we take into considerations our culture, our demographics, our history, so that we come first of all, and how do we relate, So in any relationship, for example, if I go back to his idea about marriage, even when you are courting someone and you want a relationship, there's a basic minimum. You say, I am George. And there are certain things like, I don't believe that, a lady should go out and drink alone at night and come back at midnight, Or, there are some things that you say that if you're going to have a stable home, then there are those things that, whether we like it or not, must be there to have a stable home. So even in countries, for example, it should be about us, okay? Let us not dangle, dangle our sovereignty to the highest bidder, because that is what we do, okay? So now after like 2 decades, so we have realized, China may not be, the grass is green on the other side, so we jump ship. I'm not saying we have jumped ship from the east, but by the look of things, of course, we are embracing, the Western ideology, whether it is through allies or directly through the US or people like NATO and so forth. So I think our foreign policy should have a true north. So in a way that it's a lighthouse. So when you put, for example, Kenya's whatever with NATO, don't just sign documents without us giving conditions and say yes. Now we have just been brought NATO documents, sign. You're selling your sovereignty away. Because sometimes NATO overrides international law when they are doing their business. And when it's talking about Libya, for example, when Barack Obama was asked a question, is there online, what is your worst regret as president of the US? He said it was the killing of Muammar Gaddafi. He says that should not have happened, as he has rightly, referred to, because it was just somebody's gripe. So they used NATO to undermine the whole country, and it was a jewel. But they were envious, jealous of Muammar Gaddafi, because he was setting a bad example to the rest of Africa, okay? That you can get premium pay for your resources and make life enjoyable for your people, you see? But for us, our leaders just give out our resources as long as their pockets are full. They don't care for the communities from where these resources come from. So it's not just, a foreign policy is not just a theoretical document. It's something that should be cast in stone, those bare minimums.
Okay.
So if it's NATO coming, we say, okay, we need to consult our academicians. Also, although here professors and whatever are symbols of ridicule, and in developed economies and so forth, it is academicians, professors, doctors who run, the technocrats, okay, who run the show. That's why they're developed. If you look at Kibaki's cabinet, you don't need to be told why we hit, new highs of development. It is because they are thinkers, think tanks, people who are able to read, data and analyze and see strategies that can be used. So if it's NATO, for example, we should have interrogated the contract, if you can call it that way, or the agreement. So we bring it to our security experts here. We tell them, can you go through this thing? We have a month. Go sleep over it. Let us look at the whatever and what we need to change so that we are always the ones who can, there are always exit clauses. If we say, like 2 years from now, China and the US go head to head over Taiwan, which is a likely, a military confrontation might just occur there. So are we going to side with NATO, or are we going to go through the UN system, which we are signatories of our One China system, the One China principle, which we have agreed to? So there are those contradictions that we must be able to interrogate and have competent people to advise the government, not through whims and and stuff like that. Yeah.
Again, as you come in, we've seen this government has been quite vocal in associating itself with certain policies, certain stands, geopolitics, and whatever is happening. Do you think that perhaps it's a new policy, foreign policy, and that perhaps has informed the Kenya Kwanza government, even as you chime into what he was saying?
You see, when you're talking of foreign policy,
yes.
We are talking of general objectives that most of the time are trying to inform how a country, and in this regard, Kenya, should relate or interact with other players within the globe. That is international relations. And if you look at these objectives, Kenya, within our foreign policy document of 2014,
yes,
when Ambassador Amina Mohammed was the Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Yes.
If you look at those objectives, one of the key objectives there is to safeguard the country's sovereignty and and international and national territorial boundary. Then there's also this bit of promoting of economic relations. There's the aspect of environment, and then if you look at all these, you don't just get into it without values. This is a country whereby we have values that guide us when you're dealing with matters foreign policy. For example, if you look at Kenya, by and large, we stand for equality and justice within the international system. And looking at, for example, this value and principle, it's under which you find Kenya, for example, arguing differently. If you're to remember Ambassador Kimani at the United Nations, taking very firm stance on some certain issues that, according to him, and even us as a country, believed these are some of the things we stood for. But again, remember, foreign policies, they're dynamic. Foreign policy of a country is dynamic.
As is government.
As is the government, because it depends on the government's manifesto. Remember, for example, if you had to look at the Kenya Kwanza government, there were promises. For example, the housing project was one of their key campaign tool in their manifesto. They had promised for universal health coverage and all that. So it means once a government takes power, that is through social contract. We vote this government, we get into a deal, 5-year deal. So within these 5 years, I'm supposed to achieve 1, 2, 3, 4, that which I promised in my manifesto. So it means the person wielding this power in the name of the President of the Republic of Kenya now, start now pulling strings on how to achieve that which he promised the people. So looking at where we stand, the challenge has been successive governments have been taking different standpoints. But from where I stand, I feel like our foreign policy should largely be guided by the Constitution. That is Constitution of Kenya 2010, which I agree personally that we borrowed a lot from what is there within the Constitution of Kenya.
Yes.
But apart from this, any other thing that we are doing should be for the benefit of the Republic. As we speak right now, for example,
yes.
Kenya is facing the challenge of unemployment. The president has been trying left, right, and center to talk about manufacturing, textile industry, and also revamping this economy. That's why you find that on 15th or 13th, he's likely to travel to Italy. What is Italy known for? Italy does very well in agricultural sector, textile industry. Talk of any Kenyan around, everybody I tend to believe is well conversant with Gucci. But again, as we are taking this out there, the question should be, we as a country, what are we taking to the world? Because when you're talking of the motor vehicle industry, for example, if you're talking of Germany, what comes into your mind? The German machine, the BMWs. When you're talking of Japan, you see the Toyotas around here. When you're talking of Italy, you see even the pizza as a cuisine within our country. So the question, pasta and many more. So what are we taking as a country to the global world, the international system? So that is something that the country should also dig deep and work on, because while we are talking of manufacturing, what are we producing? What is our identity? Because most of the time you find that Kenya is identified based on socio-cultural perspective. That is, Eliud Kipchoge winning some marathon, some sports like the Shujaa team. So what are we locally manufacturing that identify us as Kenya that we are taking to the globe?
And I mean, I've seen you agree.
Yeah, I think that is exactly what I was talking about, in other words. Yeah. Yes. You know, I mean, I said there's a basic. Of course, things keep changing. But if you change things fundamentally, then you lose your identity. If you look at, for example, Kibaki came up with, of course, he schemed all the national development plans, the 5-year development plans that were there. And he came up with Agenda 2030. Now, Agenda 2030, he did 10 years. And we had some seismic movements in the economy. I would have expected someone like Uhuru Kenyatta, the former president, to come and say, I think I will not touch Kibaki's game plan economically. This is what we need, okay? But what does he do? He comes and reinvents the wheel, Agenda 4. And simply because maybe some cronies around him want a piece of the pie, so they want to set up different, avenues for pilferage of public resources. So again there, then you have, I don't know, so we keep changing goalposts and keep changing plans, okay? Of course, we have to keep changing with the global situation, yeah? But then, you don't change the fundamentals, okay? So at this stage of our economy, as you're saying, you go to Italy. If you look at, for example, as in South Korea, South Korea is known for which products?
Technology, Samsung.
Yes, Samsung.
Yeah.
Now, do you know Samsung Electronics is the biggest, yeah? Samsung Electronics can loan this country money. You know, it has, I think, more revenue than, if you look at it, it almost rivals the Kenya's economy, yeah? And people like LG, Energy Solutions, Kia Motors. These are just units of, and those are our Safaricom's, okay? But they can have Safaricom for lunch. People just like Samsung, it can just have it for lunch and wipe its hands, yeah? So in these countries, we keep saying, South Korea, the last, I don't know how many, 40 years, we were at the same level. So what happened that these guys took off and left us behind? Those are things that we must be very retrospective about. We must ask ourselves the hard questions. But if we keep moving from one height to the other, now Italy calls, Italy wants us, so Iran. Or South Korea, Italy, of course, they have the Malindi, their community, small community, which is like you can say they are almost like the Happy Valley during colonialism. Okay? Yes, I was in high school in Malindi. And Italians, they are good people actually. They are not, although there was rumors that a lot of mafiosi live there. But basically, the Italians are good people, okay? They're not racist as such or anything, yeah? They blend very well with the local economy, with the local people. But Malindi, there's the circle, it's called the what? It's called the satellites exploration center, San Marco.
San Marco, yes.
It's there. So we don't have huge economic and diplomatic interests with Italy. So you wonder now, we go there, what are we going to get from Italy? So as it says, apart from the athletics that will be exported to the world, I think Kenyans have serious brains, okay? Because Kenyans are working in very top-notch places abroad. And if we have governments that are really serious about developing the country, these are brains that we can tap to. And during Kibaki's time, actually I have started seeing people were planning to come back to Kenya, People are saying, oh, I hear Kenya is, things are starting to move. Because I'm telling you, more than half of the people living abroad, if this country were to have some basic infrastructure, this is heaven. And people will tell you, I think you have relatives.
Yes.
Yeah? Although I saw you running in Atlanta, I could follow your status. And I could see you running all over the US, which of course was good fun, yeah? But even but life is hard. Apart from the hype and so forth, but getting down to it, life in the US and in those European countries is hard, yeah? And somebody was saying, I would rather stay here broke, because you cannot you cannot afford to get broke in the West.
In the West,
yes, and things are very tough.
Yeah, Kakaman?
With due respect, I'd like to differ slightly with what my beloved friend here, Dego, has just talked about.
Yes.
That is in regards that we don't have much to gain from Italy. Honestly speaking, if you look at Italian economy, we are talking of a country that is the third best in terms of GDP in European Union. At the same time, if you look at Italy, we have got an economy that largely 70% of it depends on service. If you look at this country, for example, as we speak, service industry is playing a very key role. Look at the banking sector, insurance, and many more, even the education system. So for me, I feel like there's a lot that we can gain from Italy. And if you look at the Italian economy, Italy does very well in manufacturing and in the agricultural sector. And if you are to recall what President said a few days ago on Madaraka, where he talked of taking a lot of resources into the leather industry, textile, and also revamping some industries within Western Kenya, agricultural sector. So you find that we have a lot actually to borrow from Italy that also in terms of agriculture is doing tremendously well in Europe. In fact, even fertilizer, we can even get into a deal whereby we can take some of our best minds there, go study how to produce more of this, come over here so that we can benefit our farmers and not give them fake fertilizer, sorry to say this. And at the same time, if you look at Italy from where I stand, Kenya during COVID, many Italians, unfortunately, God forbid, were swept away. You understand the age and also the challenges. Kenya and Africa at large has got a youthful population, some of whom are also looking for opportunities. The US, I'm also happy to see that you did a very good coverage when you were at Atlanta, Georgia, in the US.
Thank you.
Most of the remittances we are getting in this country is coming from the US. Why don't we have some of our citizens in Italy also to also earn into the diaspora, remittances from diaspora from Italy? And finally, thank you, brother. Finally, if you look at Kenya as we are, as service industry is being more or less exonerated, most of the tourists along the coast, name it Kilifi, Malindi, they're coming from Italy. When they come over here and they're spending their cash here, that's why I come back to the question of what are we taking to the world? Let's take Swahili cuisine, Swahili dishes. To be out there, I would like a scenario where you walk into one of the hotels in Atlanta and you go and say, I want to take some biryani. You're served with a plate of biryani. And then you walk into another place and then somebody tells you that, oh, here we are having some Kiswahili classes. Then you feel like you're still home. Nyama
there
choma.
Is such a restaurant actually in DC.
Great.
But, perhaps you're hoping for more.
For more, exactly.
To be able to sample.
Yes, and also within our agricultural system, I feel like let's add value. Let's do value addition. Let's stop exporting what we call raw materials to the outside world. Why don't we do value addition within the country, then sell finished product so that when it comes to the BOP balance of payment, we can also have slightly reduced the deficit within our balance of payment. So with due respect, I feel like senior Italy, we can really do much with Italy. And the parliament has been making a lot of noise based on the Malindi space where the Italians in the early 1960s, they took some space area within Malindi, and they've not been playing ball along as probably our interests are based. So these are things that we can also go back and renegotiate. Exactly.
Yeah, okay, George, I think, okay, first of all...
That we end up on Italy.
Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, we are spreading ourselves too thin. You see, we are latching from one partner to the other. Italy, South Korea, where, you know, so we seem to be everywhere.
Isn't that a good thing?
It is not.
It is. Really?
Even you here, for example, if you are dealing with everyone, you say, oh, I can get something from George, so you go to George. You leave him there, then you hear, oh, I don't know who else is doing this, then you run, you see? So people will say, where are your principles? Or what do you have to offer? So that you better have a few friends. You know, someone will say, you better have a few high-value friends, than have a multitude of people who is just noise, you see? And number two, that's now, we look like beggars, okay? Because now everywhere you're going is take. What are we giving out in return? And you just mentioned something that makes sense and said, we need value addition. But how long are we going to take to do these things? We have been independent for 6 decades. What can Kenya say it produces? Apart from coffee, I don't know what, and we take them raw out there. What do we really have to offer, you know? And instead of saying, you see, like, I don't know, is it Ghana that stopped the export of cocoa? Or which country? Yeah. And say, no, we are going to, if you want to do your business, if you want our cocoa, come and put up Cadbury's.
Cadbury's,
yes, here. There's no more cocoa that is going out. So that by the time it leaves, it is a product of Ghana.
So
you see?
Yeah.
So those value addition kind of things, yeah? So even tea, those blended teas, whatever they say, they should come out of here, product of Kenya, high valued products. You see? And that's how people like some countries have developed in Asia. They told the West, bring your foreign direct investments here. You will go to some of these major Asian cities, you'll find Rolls Royce. You know, you find Rolls Royce in one of the big cities in Asia. And of course, they went there because of cheap labor and all that, yeah? And then they didn't just open their doors. They just said, okay, you bring whatever here, but we have a strategy. We are the ones to call the terms and say, you want to bring your high-valued production here because it's cheaper for us to do here, and we have a good work ethic, and we have the resources that can support this industry. Then you say, we need what percentage of your foreign direct investment. You have to give us some percentage. And then you must also do with technology transfer. That is how some of these Asian guys have developed, because they're the ones who call the shots, okay? But otherwise, you have seen that we are in this, you know, this record, if you are there doing UUR.com, I don't know if you made that record, yeah? There's a time that the song could go, so there's a problem with the pin.
Santuri.
So, Santuri, yeah. So the thing just goes, so that's how we have been for 60 years. I'm sorry.
So then, when you look at, you know, the tectonic plates and, you know, the stands that we seem to be taking, Ruto, the president, was in the West 2 weeks ago. He is now in the East, and he has said Kenya is the home of mankind. You all are welcome.
Yeah.
Are we, you know, back to the, you know, initial conversation you were talking about. Moi looked West, and then, you know, he was disappointed. Yes. Kibaki came in and he looked East. Uhuru seemed to be playing a balance. When you look at President Ruto's strategy, and in terms of, you know, the famous looking East or West, or North or South, where are we looking?
Thank you. Before I answer your question, let me just throw a punch on his last point. Very good one, and I am actually just more or less supporting him by saying that by promoting our stuff out there, the president ought to have started by going to the US using KQ. Yeah, so that Fly Kenya, made in Kenya, it's Kenyan affair. Yeah, so our brand, international image out there. Now back to your question.
Yes.
What is happening right now, President Ruto is using a balancing act. By balancing act here is, me I feel it's a very good thing to have as many friends as you can in the international system, because each and every friend in the international system has got something to offer. And you too, you can always find an opportunity or even create new markets in that territory that you might have considered terra nullius, that there was nothing there. You can go and create something in it. So I feel like that balancing act, if you look at President Ruto where he stands, is, while our foreign policy document talks of us being non-aligned, that is, we are only cooperating mutually based on interest. But to a larger perspective, if you observe President William Ruto, is more or less aligned himself towards the West. And I recall in one of the interviews, I don't recall the channel very well, or the media house, but I remember him being asked whether we are facing West or facing East, but then he responded affirmatively that we are neither facing East nor West, but rather facing forward. By facing forward here, I tend to think and believe that the president meant that the country's interest supersedes whether facing East or facing West. So what should be controlling or rather guiding our foreign policy here is basically our national national interest. And therefore the balancing act here is, if you look at President Ruto today in Seoul, Korea, South Korea is more close to the Western allies as compared to the East. Geographically, the country is in Asian continent, yes, in the Far East. But ideologically, economically, politically, it aligns itself most of the time with the Western friends. Italy, the same, that President William Ruto is to visit in a couple of days from today. A few days ago, the president was in the US. This is still the West. So if you look at president, but then at the same time, there's no single place where we've been told that the president has renounced Kenya's neighborliness and close ties, diplomatic ties with the East, like China, Brazil, India, and many more. So what is coming up here is, in a multiplex world order, in an international system whereby we've got different powerhouses playing within the so-called international system, it means you have more or less to have a balance so that at any given time, you safeguard your interest. If economically my interests are best safeguarded if I face China, then go protect your interest in China. If militarily, politically, my interests are best safeguarded when I face the United States of America, then well and good. If I've got a huge population here of unemployed youth and I'm looking for employment for them, and I realize that most of them can be employed, some in Canada, some in Germany, some in Brazil, well and good. Let the remittances come back home. Remember, as we speak, anybody and everybody in the entire world system originated from Kenya. If you can dig deep and read the works of Cheikh Anta Diop, Africa, the Origin of Civilization, Turkana, Fort Tenan, Rusinga Island, even anthropologists like the likes of what's the name of this great Louis Leakey. They did their research here and came out with very good research that the origin of man, the origin of human race, and by man here, I'm not male chauvinistic, I mean both female and male, yes, originated from this part of the continent. So it simply means that we are developing diplomatic ties with our descendants, those who came from this part of the world. Thank you.
Brilliant. And on that note, let's take a break. We come back and then we pick Stephen's mind on whether we are facing east, west, or as President Ruto said,
or south,
or south, or north, or forward. You're watching the Daily Report. You're back in a few minutes. Do stay with us.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. alafu huyo mwingine ni Ridgeback ana sniff Simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries and turning dreams into reality.
Hata mbao ni pesa ya kusave. Wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching the Daily Report right here on TV47 as we continue to analyze Kenya's foreign policy in the wake of President William Ruto's visits and facing east and west. We saw, coming hot on the heels of the state visit in the United States. He's now in Seoul, South Korea. He'll be heading to Italy later in the month. And so we are just, trying to analyze and to see the place of Kenya in the geopolitics. And Stephen, he said that, Kenya should not be very fixated. Is that what you argued? Should not be very fixated in where you look. Should be free.
Yes.
You argue, on the other hand, Stephen, that you should not have,
very many friends and players,
if you could call it that. So, where should Kenya be facing then?
No, I don't mean that. Of course, we should not be fixated.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, as I said, we should not spread ourselves too thin.
Okay.
Because now we are dealing with everyone. By the time now you start auditing, where was this deal? That was Italy. That was what? Who is taking stock of this and following up all these deals that we are making?
They made say that's why the cabinet is, there is ministers and PSS. But
we know what happens. As I said, we have been there before. We have all these things. We have promises. Uhuru Kenyatta was there before. Kibaki was there before, and they made deals with tens of countries. Where are those deals today? Because we should not be having this conversation if at all the promises that have been made by Germany, by who during the other previous presidents were followed through. Okay? If you look at a country like South Korea, I was looking at the Kenya Economic Survey 2023, and the imports from South Korea we imported from South Korea 50.2 billion in 2022, and kerosene type jet fuel, and we exported goods worth how much? Can you take a guess? Which is pocket change for some rich men in Kenya. 6.1 billion.
6.1 billion.
That is what we exported to
South Korea.
So what are we talking about, really? You see, I think we need to have a vision as a country. If at all we are serious about breaking even and joining the big boys, like now being at par with people like South Korea and so forth, we just need leadership that is resolute. Otherwise, it's not about, I think, as I said, what is our grand strategy, okay? I listened to the CS Foreign Affairs and the Prime CS, Mr. Musalia Mudavadi. He had come to USIU, and he was talking about the grand strategy. And I listened, yes, it was inspiring, but then we didn't get a hook, because we must have a hook. you must have a hook around which, you know, you are always gravitating, okay? So it will do a red flag. If someone gives you a bad deal, you know, you'll have a red flag. And you know, it will go ting, so you know, no, there's something wrong here.
The buzz sound.
This is not our best interest. So I think, for me, the major thing is the economy. And this thing about democracy everywhere making a lot of noise, because that is what has really taken us astray. When you talk about democracy, for us it's noise. That if you can insult the president on Twitter and all that, now we are democratic. If you can walk naked in town, that is democracy. I mean, I think democracy should serve the common interest of people, and it should be able to open up the talents, okay? So if we look at what our major interests, and especially in the economy, so we shall see, we can deal with Israel on this. Just have one. In Italy, what are we looking for? Just have one thing with Italy, period. When you go to the US, of course, the superpower, have 5 major things and have them deliver them, okay? Higher. If you go to France, if you go to South Korea, if you go, you know, you tell South Korea, we just want a small part of your Samsung thing, bring it to Nairobi. Just one thing that can high value. So we should look at high value, okay? And of course, corruption must go. There are no two ways about it.
There are no two ways about it.
Corruption is everywhere in the world, as they say, but the fact that our corruption has made us poor shows that sisi tunakula nini matunda na tunakula mizizi. You know, you don't even take at least some fruits and make sure that the roots are still, you know, intact here. So I think when I say we should not look anywhere in particular, and in terms of bilateral relations, we should be non-aligned. We should go back to that non-aligned, okay? And people should die for us, like the US. You see, the US bites the bullet for Israel. I mean, everywhere, the whole world condemns Israel. The US can see, for example, they're killing tens of thousands of children and women. And if it was another country, the US would have sent their military there and, you know, bombarded and whatever, you know. Or like the way NATO is doing in Ukraine. It's arming Ukraine and making sure that it tries to withstand, you know, bombarding by Russia. So can the US stand for us in such a whatever, in such a situation? So let us have a few high-valued friends. Of course, even sports, we have people who we can, you know, say, we don't need your money per se. Give us sports knowledge, you see. So we have this thing that we say, Kenya should become a sport, you know, we should enter the World Cup in the next 2 seasons. We should enter the World Cup. So look for a country that you can be able to, and not that you go begging there, we can even pay for them for the expertise. So let us look for money in tangible ways. Let's not go and look in tangible ways, you know. Let us have things on the ground. Let's not be like these billionaires you see in our country, that someone is a billionaire, but when you ask what industry is he in, he doesn't produce anything, but he's a billionaire. So that is the kind of, I think, culture that we have built at a national scale. So let us have tangible products and things that the outside world can say yes.
Talking about tangible things, Paul, do you think that from the onset, or rather from the outlook of the president's efforts, you know, in all these cooperation agreements Kenya is entering with countries, do you think that there are fruits that you can say, okay, fine, Kenya is advocating for this is what we are doing, we are going to X country, we are going to the S country to pick this and that, these are the results?
Well, if you look at the deals, the biggest question here is, for you to get into a deal, you must have thought out on, is it of importance to my country or otherwise? That is the first point. The second thing is, do you really need it at that particular moment? And number 3, upon ratifying the document or signing those treaties, the next question is, who is to do the follow-up? Or is it a question whereby if there's a change of regime, then we treat them as bygones? Because again, the most serious question that comes in is, there are a lot of deals and treaties that have been signed in the successive regimes, but as far as there is no follow-up, then we stand to gain too little from some of those deals. So the question here again takes me back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the technocrats some of the handlers in terms of the ratification of these treaties, documentation, the paperwork bit of it, and then who is mandated to do the follow-up, and to what extent should we approve it as a success or a failure, and if which, then we go back to the strategic team and look at evaluation, whereby you sit back and monitor, say that, for example, we signed this deal, in this AGO agreement, for example, how did we gain? How do we stand to gain more if we renegotiate this deal? We go back and look at, for example, well, 60 Kenyan students to go and study in the US. Is this enough? Do we need more? And if so, do we have more or less of a clause within the deal whereby upon completing their studies, they have to come back home and serve their country within a certain duration? Or are we likely to face brain drain, whereby you come and capture some of our best minds, 60 of them, take them into the US, train them, after which they serve that economy, then they come back home upon retirement, just to come and relax home. So you ask yourself now, are we gaining from it or not gaining from it? So that is the main question that our Ministry for Foreign Affairs and even the presidential team, the executive team, should be able to address. But apart from that, again, you see some of these deals, some of them are coming in form of aid, assistance, something that I personally don't subscribe to, because I feel like this is dead aid. If you look at majority of the economists in the world have checked on the relations between Africa and the rest of the world, and you realize that for a very long time Africa has been marginalized. By marginalized is in terms of economic assistance, out of every $7 that leave the African continent, one comes back home in form of aid. So it means we lose 6 and get back 1. So it means it's not equal kind of relations and transactions from the international perspective. And number 2, if you're to look at Africa historically in international relations and diplomatically, Africa has faced a lot of challenges, whereby look at Africa during the slave trade. Majority of well-built, energetic youth left the continent to go and assist building other economies.
Industrialization.
If you look at colonial period, you find that again, a lot of raw materials left the continent. So today, we are in 21st century, but we are still facing the challenges that the continent has faced a couple of decades ago. Therefore, the question is, even in terms of raw materials, why don't we think of striking a deal whereby you come and set it up within the continent? We give you some, we can subsidize the cost maybe, or you come to our, yes, then you come, establish it, run it within a certain duration of time, after which, when you're done, we have it back, but in the so-called running it, you transfer what I call technological transfer. So that upon leaving, we say that, well, now we've got engineers who can comfortably and competently run this farm or run this industry to the gain of the continent and Kenya in specific. So I feel we have to relook the long term. Of course, there are short-term gains, but in the long term, what is the future of the coming generations? Because these are missions that the president is engaging in. And if I may quote the works of Frantz Fanon in his work, The Record of the Earth, Fanon says that every generation must understand its mission. And it's upon that generation to either fulfill the mission or betray the mission. And I'm happy to say that in this strategic movement that the president is making in the international arena is trying more or less to satisfy some mission. Remember, the power of a country also depends on its diplomatic magnitude. Do we have embassies all over the world? Because you cannot have embassies and consulates if there's nothing you're gaining from that country. So let's try as much as possible to broaden our diplomatic power in the international system, and then upon which capitalize on it, so that at the end of the day, it has a ripple effect. By gaining this, the neighborhood may also benefit from some of these deals. But we must do a follow-up, and at the end of the day, we must also have time limit. We cannot have a deal that has been signed in 2024 and waiting for it to be implemented in 2050.
Yeah, I think it's borderline to what you were saying earlier on. We've been there before, and you've said that. I mean, ever since this US trip came up back then. So when you look at the pertinent question that he was asking, what can Kenya sell? Do you think that at this point we have fashioned ourselves as a country? Fine, we are putting ourselves and saying, okay, we are open for A, B, C, D. But even if, as you look at the disparity of imports and exports, especially between Kenya and South Korea, there's 50.2 billion imports into Kenya and 6.1 billion exports to South Korea. Do you think that we are fashioning ourselves up to be in a position whereby we will then equalize this? Because at the end of the day, it's all about the numbers that will make sense. And then we can successfully, or we can comfortably say that this was a successful venture, this has not been successful, we need to go this other way.
I think, Judge, we have been open since independence, okay? So let's ask ourselves, why have there been no takers, okay? Because it's not the first time. I mean, there's nothing new. It's just that Ruto has accentuated, you know, all this business of going to sign deals and everything, yeah? But really, for me, I think we need to see even, okay, tell me, for example, just a good example of someone new who has come to this country and brought serious investment, okay? We just find a lot of fast-moving consumer goods for time with Carrefour supermarkets, okay? But you have not seen a serious manufacturer come and say, I'm setting up a huge plant, okay? All we hear is that so-and-so has promised to put up a huge plant. I'm telling you 5 years, 10 years will pass. You will not see that plant. Simply because of our governance. You see, people don't just come put money here. Even, okay, I don't know the truth of the matter, but I think you're in the news more than me.
Yes.
And maybe you're getting a lot of this news that investors are actually leaving. So if investors are actually leaving because of maybe what they find is an unfair tax regime, okay, and other, you know, investment hurdles, and then you're telling people to come in. I mean, so you can see the irony, the contradictions that we have, yeah? So I think for me, it's all about governance. And if we do not get our governance right, and make sure that we are deliberate about, you see all these things, we are very good at theories, okay? Oh, we do this, you know, we can get this from, but what are the strategies to get these things from people, okay? When a bank wants your money, they have strategized about how to get your money, okay? How to make you go and get a mortgage from there, and you'll end up mortgaging even yourself, you know? At one point, as far as they suck you in, so from that point, you are at their mercy, because they have your house and you have their money. So you have to play ball, you know, whichever way. And sometimes it's rough and you get foreclosures and so forth, see? So in the same way, we must have serious people in authority who are going to say, yes, these are the things that we would like investors here to, and this is what we are offering in return. Okay. But you don't now have a burning house and you're telling people, oh, come. You know?
Is a house burning?
And people are dashing out. So people are like, where are you telling us to go? So I think for me, we need to really get serious because we are not. There's a lot of serious talk. That is that's what we have, serious talk. Okay. But I just said that we were having a discussion with someone and we were like, what happened to things like cashew nuts? You know, now you cannot afford cashew nuts in the supermarket. When I was schooling at the coast, a couple of decades, back when I was in high school in Malindi, as I told you. So cashew nuts were like, you know, you go to Kilifi, that time there was still the ferry, so you could find cashew nuts lined up all over. And the farmers there were making money, and everyone could share the cashew nuts. Now cashew nuts, we produce cashew nuts in Malindi, but even the producers cannot, unless they eat on the farm. Once they leave their farm, they cannot afford their own produce. Because nothing at the supermarket. Have you seen how much cashew nuts cost?
Yeah, they're quite pricey.
It is. Yesterday, I don't know, I think it's yesterday I was watching one of the TV stations, and I saw there's a project to bring back cashew nuts, you know? And I was like, why did we even kill? Yeah, why did we even lose it? So what do we kill? We are killing our own people, and then we start telling other people to come and help us. Our destiny lies in us. it's not a matter of checking out there. First of all, we have to look hard at a tough, hard look on ourselves and decide where have we gone wrong, and are we ready to change? Because unless we are not ready to change our hearts, then we are not going to go anywhere. We shall just have all this, a lot of, heat, but there's no light.
Mixed reactions I could see from Paul.
Oh, thank you. No, actually, I support what he's talking about.
Okay.
We've been serious talkers. We talk seriously out the international system. But I think it's high time whereby we start walking the talk. By walking the talk is we have to be introspective. Let's look into ourselves.
Yes.
Where have we got it wrong? How can we make it better? And as we make it better, I think we can also borrow a leaf from the case of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, whereby meritocracy. Meritocracy. Let's take our best out there. Let's get our best engineers doing this. For example, you remember even during World Cup in Qatar.
Qatar, yes.
Some of the best stadiums there have been done by Kenyan engineers. Yet back home, we don't have even a single stadium to celebrate about. Why don't we bring some of these best brains within the country to revamp our economy? So I feel like meritocracy should be at the foremost before anything else, be it in diplomacy, be it in the education sector, be it in the manufacturing. That is the only way in which we can have more or less what I call a notch high, or rather a starting point, or rather we can be ahead of the pack. Otherwise, if we continue playing the same way, the same system, then the results are likely to be the same.
Okay.
It's time whereby we have to check what are we good at, and how can we more or less become the world's best in this. For example, we are doing very well in athletics. But the question is, do we have enough facility, for example? Because most of these Kenyans who are breaking world records, they don't break world records in the African continent. They are breaking world record in the Western world. It tells you we don't have enough facility. Let's come and have those good stadiums within. Let's try as much as possible to equip our athletes, soccer, and all that. Otherwise,
so that then these big races can be held here.
Exactly, because also tourism, we have to attract people, because if Kipchoge Keino or Eliud Kipchoge is breaking records in Vienna, how many Kenyans go there to watch? And if at all there are people who are going to Vienna, then from the tourism sector, who is benefiting big? Vienna. Who is reaping big? But if at all such a record is being broken somewhere in Eldoret or somewhere in Nyeri or even in Malindi, then we'll be attracting so many tourists from the rest of the world coming into the continent. And apart from just watching Eliud Kipchoge breaking these records, they also purchase 1 or 2 items that have been produced locally from within the country.
So we need to bring the conversation to a close.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll sum up your comments with the, just 2 minutes of the closing remarks.
I mean, this is broad, and it can, we can discuss this.
And spiral it up all
of course.
through.
When you're in a pub, this is what we discuss the whole night. But here we put it now here in 2 hours.
In 2 hours, yes.
But I think I want to follow up on his point about leveraging on our talents, and what other resources we have. So, for example, if Rift Valley, for example, we know it's an athletic, not even sporting, it's an athletic nation. In the Rift Valley.
Yes.
We should have Adidas and Nike and all those guys putting up some serious investment, even making of those gabs. Okay? You have seen what Isuzu have done with the
trucks.
Isuzu with this D-Max, Kipchoge. They're marketing using Kipchoge, So you can even have Kipchoge
as a cloth line.
Yes, as a cloth line. An Adidas cloth line of, and these are not dreams. These are things that if you have serious leadership, you can put them on the ground.
Sure.
You see? So Rift Valley, then you have those guys, Adidas, who they come and bring their money, their serious money. If you look at most of the people, like now, someone like Kipchoge, a lot of his money goes with his managers. Okay, there, his whatever, his promoters and all that. Okay, they take a cut.
Quite a huge.
Yeah, they take quite a huge cut. So as we just left with, so we must demand. Someone like Nani will say, someone like Kipchoge would say, okay, Nike, Adidas, and of course the government should be able to whatever him and say, this is the deal.
This is the way.
This is the way I want us to split this thing. You see, so let us be people who are now going out there and being aggressive. So the rest of the world will say, "Excuse me, these are different guys we are dealing with.
Yes.
Not the same beggars that Yeah. So if it is someone like Nyeri, what are our strong points in Nyeri?
Absolutely.
We set up a cottage industry that brings that we perfect. If you go to Mombasa, we know it's tourism and whatever. But still, there are hard industries like juices that we can, it's a fruity place, mangoes and stuff. Right?
Absolutely.
So we need visionary leadership. He says Singapore, Malaysia. These are discussions we're going to have another day.
Yes.
But democracy, our version of democracy, which we have adopted, is part of the problem.
Part of the problem.
Yes.
You get the last word again.
Thank you. Kenya is a beautiful girl in the world. It's Kenyan time to attract as many as possible, yes. But as we do this, let's do it strategically. Let's embrace the doctrine of meritocracy in each and every bilateral or multilateral negotiation you are getting into. All is not lost. It's better to start, because when you start, we are talking of, are you going to achieve it or not? The president has set the ball rolling. It's now up to us and the rest of other Kenyans to ensure that at the end of it all, Kenya stands to gain. Thank you.
Brilliant. What a way to wind up the program. Speaking to Stephen Degwa on my immediate left, Executive Director of South-South Dialogues. Thank you for joining us, as well as Paul Agina, International Relations Expert and PhD lecturer at Multimedia University, and also pursuing your PhD.
Thank you.
Brilliant, gentlemen.
I'm also doing my PhD.
And you're also doing your PhD. So very soon you're going to have doctors.
Yes, they shall be as doctors.
God willing, inshallah, amin. So thank you so much for watching, and also for your great feedback. That's all the time we had for right here on the Daily Report. I am George Maringa. I'll see you next time tomorrow morning on Morning Cafe. We breathe in some new energy as we discuss matters, state of the nation and others, and later on the People's Court. So do stay with us right here on TV47. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another.